Now let's get to more technical stuff. How do we design a shirt, for instance? Now, it's difficult to think out of the box and how to design specific type of features on each shirt. So I like to use a template. So you'll find a lot of templates in your textbook. One of them I'm going to place on my artboard, and we are going to trace that image. Now remember, in the clothing industry, I can't just copy something. This is true for any kind of industry, obviously. Otherwise, we are doing or plagiarizing. So we need to change something. Now this is why I've got so many style lines in here, so that we can obviously change something. Right, so how do I do this? I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to rename this shirt template. I'm going to select a file that I will load up for you, or you will also be able to get that from your textbook. I'm going to say place, and I'm going to look around for that file. The one that I want to use is a technical drawing basic shirt sample, and I'm going to place it right there. Now, if I'm just going to change the opacity or the transparency of this so that I can see what's going on. I'm going to see how I'm changing that transparency over there so that I can see how it would fit on my actual model. Now you can see that it's quite skew, and the arms don't fit, the shoulders don't fit anything, they don't really go there. So how do we change this? Now first off, I'm going to change the visibility of my template. I'm going to put that off, and I'm going to lock my shirt template. Okay, so again, I'm going to take off my template so that I can see what the shirt looks like. So you can see that the shirt's got its collar, it's got seams, it's got top stitching, it's got its darts, and it's got a few style lines, and it's got buttons. Okay, so and it's got everything that you're looking for within a shirt. So what do I do? Well, I'm going to use this idea, but I'm specifically going to trace it off on my template. Okay. So first off, I am going to say shirt. So I've created a new layer, and I said shirt. So I'm going to use my pen tool. I don't want a fill, so no fill, and I want a color for the stroke, so I'm going to use pink. That's generally what I like to use, and my weight is going to be 3.25. Right. So as with any type of design, we are going to trace the template first. I'm going to be using the same template over and over so we get a standard design. I'm going to do this as rough work. I'm not going to do it precisely as it should be, just for time reasons. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to transform, I'm going to reflect, and I'm going to copy it over. So I'm going to move this to there, and here we can see that we have 1 point, a little bit to the left there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to join these two sections. I'm going to join the bottom and that one and that one and join it. Right, so now we've got our main bodice piece. As you can see, if I'm going to do that, that is our main bodice piece. Now if I'm going to unhide my shirt again, let's change the default opacity of my shirt. Unlock that if you want to change anything on there, and change it to so that we can actually see again. Okay, so you can see what I did here is just that main section. Okay, so this isn't quite right. It's square, where this one is more rounded. Okay, so this is the one way of doing it. Now, obviously, we've got a few different things. I generally like to just have one piece. If you are going to actual design and make this shirt, it should have been a few sections, right? You've got one piece over here, and you've one piece over there, and you've got your button extension over there. You can do that. This is just a quick way of doing things. So let's curve this section first. So I'm going to again show my template. I have to take away my shirt. Okay, so now that we've got two anchor points over there, I need to delete one anchor point. Now how to do that? I'm going to just select the delete anchor point, and I'm going to take that anchor point there to the apex of my curve. Again, I'm going to select my anchor point tool, and I'm going to hold in shift so that it's a uniform curve. Okay, so there we've got our curve for our shirt. Right, done. So that's how that would look. So let's see what we want to do next. So let's do sleeves. So first off, I'm going to trace my sleeve. I want to hide, so let's do this. Instead of keeping it shirt, I'm going to say shirt bodice. I'm going to put a layer on top of that, and I'm going to say sleeves. Right, so I can hide my bodice. Now I'm just going to be working on my sleeves. With selected the pen tool, I'm going to trace over my, well, this will obviously be a tight fitting type of sleeve. You can obviously design it a little bit differently depending on your style. I don't care if you design it precisely on or as a form-fitting type of sleeve. Again, it all depends on your style that you're looking for. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this is one feature, and that's quite easy to do. So when I've got to my armhole, I'm going to just randomly, I don't really care what it looks like, do something like that. Now why would I do that? If I change this color, and you'll see that currently now we're going to start working with layers. My sleeves layer is on top of my shirt bodice, so as such I want to change my bodice so that it actually has a fill. You can see that I've got this random thing going on there. But if I take my sleeve and I drag it down underneath, now make sure that you don't drag it into, you drag it underneath your shirt bodice, and you can see how that popped down. Cool, right? So if I had a stroke, and I'm going to have a stroke over here, you can see that I've got my seam. Okay, so let's see where we are at the moment. Let's put our shirt template. Okay, that's great. And I need a second sleeve. So all I do with this sleeve is I'm going to right click, I'm going to transform, I'm going to reflect and copy and move it to where it should go. Boom. There I've got two sleeves. Okay. Let's see what we want to do now. We want our button extension. Okay. Now how do we know where that button extension goes? Well, I've got my center front there and I've got a guide. So all I do, I can use either a rectangle tool or I can use my pen tool. I'm just going to use a rectangle tool, and I'm going to do that. So it doesn't really matter how big it is. Right, so you can see that I've put it in the wrong layer. It's currently in the sleeves layer, which means that it is going to show underneath our bodice. So all I do is, you can send it as front to the front as much as you like. It's never going to go above the shirt bodice. So I have to make sure that I'm going to select that specific rectangle, and I'm going to, this time I'm going to drag it into my shirt bodice. Now you can see how it popped up there. And I'm going to show you, if I obviously put a fill up as the same as that, and there we have that one. I'm going to get it a little bit wider. So I'm going to hold in Alt on my keyboard, so you can see I get a uniform widening of my button extension. It's obviously a little bit too long, and I'm going to change that, and obviously I need to change my weight of my stroke back to 1 point. So there I've got my little button extension. I'm not going to do the collar right now. I am going to do the buttons. Now you can see buttons that you've got buttonholes as well. That's at the top. This one doesn't show it at the top and the bottom, because obviously your button needs to go in and your hole needs to be a certain size. You will learn that in KLR 120. And then your collar button needs to be horizontally fixed so that it actually move around a little bit. Okay, so let's do 1 or 2 buttons. Right, so I do this with my ellipse tool. This is going to be a circle, obviously, and I'm going to hold in Shift and Alt. The reason that I do Alt as well, you'll see if I leave Alt, that's going to grab to the right. If I push in Alt, it keeps the center at a specific point. Right, so this is my button over there. A little bit too big, so again holding Shift and Alt so that I can get that smaller. Right, so you can change your width of your stroke as well. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail how to create the best button. We'll leave that for a later video. All I want to do now is I want to copy that and I want to paste a few. That's probably about 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got another one. Okay. So all of these buttons I need to align. So my bottom button is going to be around my waist. My top button, I'm not going to put in the most top button over there. I'm just going to put in the middle button, so I actually have too many buttons at the moment. So what I do is I'm going to select, so with my selection tool, I'm going to drag over, lock that template. I want to drag over all of the buttons. Now you see that I've got my bodice selected, I've got this button extension selected, and the buttons. Now I don't want that, I just want the button selected. So all I do is I hold in Shift and I click on the bodice, and I hold in Shift and I click on the button extension. So now you see that only the buttons are selected. So firstly what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm going to align to selection so that it's only aligned to the buttons. So all I do is I'm going to horizontal align center, so now all the buttons are going to be center aligned. All I do is I am going to move these buttons into the center of my button extension. Now the issue that I have is this is not where the buttons should be. They should be nicely uniform distributed. So what I'm going to use is the distribute object, so vertically distribute center. So what it's going to do is it's going to distribute from the bottom button to the top button, everything in between. So see if I click that, boom, and now you've got a nice uniform look for your buttons. So how do we do the collar? Well, first off, I'm going to trace this collar. I generally find it easier. So I'm going to take off my fill. I'm just going to use my stroke, and my stroke is going to be 0.25. So it's going to be 3 parts. And I'm going to do this one first. So obviously you'll see the image isn't straight, but I'm going to make it straight. So that's my inner collar. I'm going to do that. It doesn't really matter with regards to how this section looks like, because that's going to go underneath my main collar. Okay, so what I should have actually done is made another layer and said collar. That doesn't matter, but I mean you can change it. So chuck it into that collar layer. Okay, I'm going to change that because I'm working on pink. So change that color, and I'm going to say orange. Great. Okay, so second one would be, I want to have this section over here, the actual collar part. So what I'm going to do is I am going to select my pen tool, and I'm going to just create this one little collar part. So again, I'm not going to do it perfectly. This is just to show how to do these things. Okay, now you can see that what I did is that section and that section does not coincide. So all I do is I just move with my selection tool and move that around. When we do the fill, we'll get that to look a bit better. I'm going to do top stitching as well, just for reference, because I just want to do it once, because we're going to reflect this piece of the collar. So with my pen tool selected, I'm going to just draw a line straight down like that. Boom, boom. And I'm going to select a dashed line with my gap 3, 2.5. And that is my little collar, first collar. And I'm going to fill this up. I don't really like the pink though, it's a bit too shocking. Let's use the blue. And I'm going to have a black stroke. My stroke should be generally 1 point. Okay, and then my collar piece, I'm going to have a fill again of blue, and my stroke I'm going to set as black, and my top stitching also is black. My top stitching I want as 1 point, and my stroke over here as 1 point as well. Okay, so what we want to do is we want this one and that one to be, although I personally don't like one, let's do 0.5 top stitching, and I want a cap. You can see how I've rounded the cap. It looks a bit more like a real top stitching, and I want to change that edge to a rounded edge. So we want this one thing to be the same, so what I'm going to do is select both the top stitching and the collar, and I'm going to say group, so that when I reflect at the same time. Right click, transform, and reflect. You can see that I made a copy, and I'm going to push it over to there. Right, so you can see that it doesn't coincide precisely, which is okay. We'll change it when we get to the end. So I'm going to cut this part, and I'm going to paste it on to my shirt. Now your collar should sit nicely on your shoulder. So there we go. Now let's sort out that issue over there. I don't like that. I generally don't like when it goes over like that. So we can just change our corner. You can see how it pops in. And I'm going to change this corner to rounded as well. You can see how beautifully it does fill in. Rounded, and there we go. That looks fine. So all we do over here, I'm going to, in my shirt bodice, I'm going to create a little section like so. You see how underneath my collar I don't see what's going on. I don't care because it's a layer underneath. Obviously need to add a you'll see that I haven't added my button holes. We will do that at a later stage. Okay, so you'll see again this is in my shirt bodice. It's not the top layer. So all I want to do is I want to send it to the front. And so there we go. So all I have now underneath, I've got nothing underneath, so this is obviously the inside of the shirt. Generally on the inside of the shirt you want to get a bit of a darker color. So all I do is I'm going to select that color and just going to go there. So you can see it's a little bit dark over there. I'm going to use on my shirt bodice layer, I'm going to go and I'm going to put in that little section over there, and I'm have the inside of my shirt. Now that issue over there, so all I do is I'm going to send it to the back, which was right click and send to the back. Alright, so one thing that you should know is depending on your style of your shirt, whether you've got a center back seam or center front seam. Okay, so again, this is it's not the nicest thing that I've ever designed, but it does show you or give you an idea as to how this would look. Okay, so now all we do is we need to copy this, reflect it, take out the collar, and bounce your ankle.